In our headlines on this Tuesday afternoon, September 12th, North Korea's Kim Jongun is in Russia as his train crossed the border earlier this morning, and prospects of a summit with his counterpart Vladimir Putin are high amid rampant speculation of an arms deal between the two leaders. Meanwhile, President Yoon Suk-yeol presides over a cabinet meeting on this Tuesday, touting Korea's recent gains, including a space deal with India and 22 MOUs with Indonesia, following the latest global gatherings of the G20 and the ASEAN, respectively. And the death toll from last week's deadly earthquake in Morocco continues to rise, surging past 2,800 as rescue and relief efforts remain hindered by a lack of proper access to affected regions in the African country. A summit between North Korea and Russia is looking likely as a heavily armored train carrying Kim Jong-un crossed into Russian territory earlier on this Tuesday. Our defense correspondent Cho Min-jung, who has been following this particular story, joins me live on the line. Min-jung, what is the latest thus far?
Well, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un seems to be moving north after arriving in Hasan, Russia, located on the border of the two countries. According to Russian state-owned news agency RIA Novosti, Kim's train crossed into Russia's far eastern Primorsky region and is heading north. This follows reports in Japanese media outlets that Kim's train had arrived at Hasan Station this morning and was welcomed with a ceremony. South Korea's defense ministry also said Tuesday that it believes Kim entered Russia early this morning on his private train. The leader is reportedly being accompanied by his foreign minister, Choi Sun-hee, as well as his top military officials. Kim's trip to Russia marks his first foreign trip since the COVID-19 pandemic, which forced North Korea to close its borders for more than 3 years.
Right, for more than 3 years indeed, Min-jung. In the meantime, do we have any idea, Min-jung, when this summit between Kim and Putin will take place?
Right. This morning, the Kremlin announced that Kim and Putin will hold a summit in the Far East within the coming days. The summit is widely anticipated to take place on either September 12th or 13th, possibly in Vladivostok. This is where the two leaders met for the first time more than 4 years ago, and it's also where the Russia-led Eastern Economic Forum, reportedly attended by Putin, is taking place until Wednesday. The Russian leader is also expected to host an official dinner for Kim. And now talks between the two leaders will likely be focused on bilateral ties as well as an arms deal, considering that a number of military personnel are on the trip, including the regime's two top military officials, Lee Byung-chul and Park Jung-ton. Seoul's defense ministry said it is closely watching whether the two countries will negotiate arms trade and technology transfer. The U.S. on Monday also threatened to aggressively enforce existing sanctions and add new ones if the regime decides to provide weapons to Russia. This is all I have for now, but I'll be back with updates on our next newscast. Back to you, Sunny.
Right, Min-jung, thank you for that coverage and do keep us posted. Meanwhile, the International Atomic Energy Agency says there are signs of activity at North Korea's Punggye-ri nuclear test site and also of construction work at the Yongbyon nuclear facility. Speaking at a board meeting in Vienna earlier this week, the head of the agency, Rafael Grossi, claimed the Punggye-ri nuclear test site appears ready for a nuclear test, adding that activity has been continuous in tunnel number 3. That being said, Grossi sought to discourage any nuclear test by North Korea, stressing it would violate UN Security Council resolutions and raise much concern. In local news, President Yoon Suk-yeol remains hopeful about hosting a trilateral summit with China and Japan at the earliest opportunity, given his exchanges with Chinese Premier Li Qiang and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida on the sidelines of the G20 and ASEAN gatherings in India and Indonesia, respectively. Speaking at a cabinet meeting on this Tuesday, President Yoon also emphasized active engagement with overseas markets, as Korea is an export-driven country. To this end, he highlighted his recent accord with India on space initiatives and the signing of 22 MOUs with Indonesia. On the domestic front, President Yoon shared his sorrow amid the suicide of yet another teacher who had reportedly suffered from allegations of child abuse, which a court later ruled against, clearing her of any wrongdoing. And in related news, tangible efforts are underway to better protect teachers here from such malicious allegations of child abuse amid a number of shocking and very sad suicides from related stress. Our political correspondent Kim Jung-sil reports.
The government and lawmakers are rushing to protect school teachers here in South Korea. On Tuesday morning, the government and the ruling People Power Party met to discuss amending laws to better protect teachers' authority. They discussed ways to counter one of the most serious issues, unreasonable child abuse reports by parents.
We have decided to establish a new regulation requiring the school superintendent to submit a mandatory opinion to the investigative body. And the investigative parties must take the opinion into consideration and put it in the record during the investigation.
With the opinion submitted by the Office of Education that oversees local schools, officials say teachers will have an authoritative body giving more objective opinions regarding the incident.
Over the past decade, teachers have been suffering from the collapsed balance between students' human rights and teachers' rights. Teachers are demanding one thing in particular. They are requesting the law to protect legitimate educational guidance from indiscriminate reports of child abuse.
The movement from the government and lawmakers has been fueled by the recent cases of several school teachers taking their own lives. South Korean media reported many of the teachers suffered from malicious complaints for years in some cases, and that they were under a lot of stress when facing police investigations. Physical punishment has been basically banned in schools in South Korea since 2012, but unreasonable reports of, quote, emotional abuse have put teachers in difficult situations when disciplining students. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
In Morocco, more than 2,800 lives have been lost, according to the latest tally available in the aftermath of last week's deadly earthquake. Korea, for its part, is seeking a tangible relief plan with authorities in the African country. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
In what was the strongest earthquake to hit the center of Morocco in over a century, the death toll from Friday's deadly quake has now risen past 2,800. According to local authorities, as of Monday, 2,862 were killed and 2,562 others injured in the 6.8 magnitude earthquake. The worst affected area is the province of Al-Haouz, where nearly 1,500 people have died due to the fact that it's located at the foot of the Atlas Mountains and includes remote villages and settlements that have been challenging for rescuers to reach. And with the golden time ticking down and rescuers struggling to get to the victims, there are fears the death toll could rise even further over the next several days. And with so many hard-to-reach areas, authorities have not yet issued any estimates for the number of people missing. UNICEF also estimates that about 100,000 children in the country may be affected by the earthquake, while the UN Children's Agency says it doesn't know exactly how many children were killed or injured in the disaster. 2022 estimates show that children make up around one-third of the population of the North African nation. Meanwhile, Seoul's foreign ministry announced Monday that it's ready to support Morocco if the country makes such a request. However, the official who spoke on the condition of anonymity said the government has not reached a mutually agreed-upon aid plan with Morocco just yet, but will decide on support measures after consulting with Moroccan authorities. The South Korean government also vowed to work in close consultation with both Morocco and the international community to help the country overcome any difficulties. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Authorities in Japan say the first round of radioactive wastewater released from their devastated Fukushima nuclear power plant into the Pacific Ocean ended on Monday, and the second round is scheduled to start in a few weeks. Accordingly, nuclear officials from Korea are slated to travel to neighboring Japan yet again. Here's our Lee Si-hoo.
The first release of Fukushima wastewater that began on August 24th ended a little after noon on Monday, according to reports by Japanese public broadcaster NHK. South Korea's Office for Government Policy Coordination shared relevant details about this also on Monday during a regular briefing.
When the cleaning of the leftover wastewater inside the transfer facility is completed today, the release of the first discharge will have been completed.
Park added that a total of over 7,700 cubic meters of wastewater was released. There were no manual shutdowns or the operation of emergency valves to prevent the accidental release of undiluted wastewater. The wastewater included tritium, a form of radioactive hydrogen the processing system cannot filter out.
Samples collected from 14 points in waters within 10 kilometers of the nuclear power plant show that the tritium concentration was much lower than the standard for the suspension of the release.
Back in August, South Korea and the International Atomic Energy Agency agreed to share related information and updates on the discharge. As part of this information sharing framework, Seoul dispatched 3 experts on August 27th from the Korea Institute of Nuclear Safety to Fukushima. For around 2 weeks, they visited the release site and held multiple talks with the IAEA, confirming the agency's own analysis of radionuclide concentrations separate from those of the Tokyo Electric Power Company. The experts and officials from the IAEA and the local office in Fukushima will conduct a comprehensive evaluation of the first release via video conference this week. South Korea once again is planning to dispatch experts to the site sometime next week. The Government Policy Coordination Office said during its briefing that the date of the second discharge has not been determined this far. However, Japan's public broadcaster NHK reported later that day that it will begin after about 3 weeks of equipment checks. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
In other news, Korea and Uzbekistan have sealed a deal to bolster their supply chain cooperation. Now, Seoul's Trade Ministry on this Tuesday said the two countries signed a trade and investment promotion framework here in the capital city. Uzbekistan is Korea's first TIPF partner in Central Asia and its 7th since the first such partnership was signed with the United Arab Emirates this past January. Uzbekistan is rich in rare minerals and rare metals, more likely, and last year the country ranked 12th in the world for reserves of molybdenum, an element used by the semiconductor industry. Capital Seoul is poised to promote a travel pass that allows unlimited access to public transportation within the city. For a monthly payment of 65,000 Korean won, or some $49 US, the so-called climate card will be available starting next January under a pilot project until May, prior to an actual implementation in the latter half of next year. The card can be used for public transport and operates with a basic rate, including subways, buses and public bikes. Authorities hope the card eases the cost of living and climate change by encouraging the use of mass transportation. Korean Kiwis are promising royalty fees of more than $11 million over the next decade for the country from France. Our Yoon has this report.
This is a kiwi farm in Labatu, a rural village in France. The fresh fruits on these kiwi vines are the Haegum and Haewon varieties developed by the Agricultural Research and Extension Services of South Korea's Jeollanam-do province. The test cultivation of these 2 kiwi varieties on European soil has been completed, and distribution to 11 farms in France started last year. Farmers are looking forward to their first harvest this year.
I'm looking forward to 2 things. Because it's a new variety, it will attract customers, and the fruit itself is big and has a good flavor. Also, it is harvested earlier than existing varieties, so we're expecting good income.
The French company that these 2 Korean kiwi varieties have been exclusively contracted to plans to sell them across Western Europe. It will cultivate some 400 hectares of the Haegum variety and 100 hectares of the Haewon variety. These varieties are expected to be highly competitive, with one of their greatest advantages being a long storage period.
We plant more Haegum, gold kiwi fruit, because we need more gold kiwi fruit for European market. Okay, and there is a very good feedback of the buyers for Haegum because of the very good color, nice taste.
Rather than exporting kiwi fruit, South Korea is distributing the seedlings and reaping royalty fees from their cultivation. This is the first time that South Korea has exported fruits to Europe for royalty fees. The contract period for the kiwis is 30 years, and royalty fees of over $11 million are expected over the first 10 years.
The fruit has a great appearance, and the high uniformity of the fruits makes its rate of commercialization very high. It has good sweetness and a rich gold color. I don't think it falls behind in competition with other foreign varieties.
The Agricultural Research and Extension Services is planning to export the Hegum and Hewan varieties to other countries like South Africa, Chile, and Australia. Yoon, Arirang News.
Next-generation barcodes, pundits say, share unprecedented levels of vital information for the benefit of consumers, businesses, and even the earth. Our business correspondent Shin Ha-young explains.
The well-known beep sound when a product is scanned is heard about 6 billion times per day across the world. Marking the 35th anniversary of the barcode in South Korea, the country has seen a 1,000-fold increase in the number of Korean companies adopting barcodes compared to 1988. However, there is potential for the South Korean retail industry to go even further, especially regarding circular economy and sustainable growth. That's according to the CEO of GS1, a global non-governmental organization based in Belgium, credited with designing and implementing global standards for barcodes.
So if you look at the retail industry in Korea, it's one of the most advanced in the world already. The European Union wants to implement a real circular economy, and they are asking all export countries to provide data about the products that will be exported to Europe. What we do is to define a global language of business, meaning standardized data that can be used by all partners when they exchange information.
He also stressed the importance of digital transformation among retail and logistics industries by using the next-generation barcode powered by GS1.
So the original barcode, 35 years ago, initiated a strong revolution in commerce and in supply chain. Today, with the next-generation barcode, it's the beginning of a new revolution. A new revolution which will lead to better consumer information, and this will create trust with consumers.
He added that another aspect of digitalization is to improve the operation of companies.
Retailers have the possibility with this technology to improve inventory management and also to propose what we call dynamic pricing to consumers. That is, when the product arrives closer to the expiry date, you can make a discount.
A label-free water bottle with an imprinted GS1 QR code on the lid is one of the examples that demonstrates digital transformation and sustainable growth in South Korea. Citing disruptions caused by the pandemic and shortage of certain raw materials, the GS1 CEO said managing the supply chain has become more crucial.
You need to have a good transparency and visibility in the supply chains that you manage. A proof is that during the pandemic, in the countries where a common standard was adopted, they were able to consolidate how much inventory they have for this medicine or this medicine, and then be able to better allocate where they needed the medicines.
He added that functioning as a global language, QR codes will help exporters, including Korean firms, to comply more easily with requirements from around the world. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In northeastern Libya, thousands of people are feared dead following devastating floods over the weekend. A military spokesperson for the eastern region put the death toll at over 2,000 on Monday and said around 5,000 others are missing. The flooding was caused by torrential downpours from Storm Daniel. The heavy rains also caused a dam to burst near the city of Derna, sweeping away entire neighborhoods. The city was worst hit, with the non-profit group, the Libyan Red Crescent, putting the death toll there at more than 300. Authorities expect the death toll to rise as search and rescue operations continue. Parts of the region have been declared a disaster zone. Libya is politically divided between the east and west. The internationally recognized government does not control the impacted area. In the United States, memorial events were held on Monday to mark the 22nd anniversary of the September 11th Twin Towers attack that killed around 3,000 people. In New York, Vice President Kamala Harris and other officials paid tribute at the site of the tragedy, while U.S. President Joe Biden addressed service members and first responders from a military base in Anchorage, Alaska. Other events were held at the Pentagon and a 9/11 memorial in Pennsylvania, as well as firehouses and city halls. On September 11, 2001, 4 planes were hijacked by members of the Al-Qaeda terrorist group. 2 of the planes crashed into New York's Twin Towers, and another plane hit the Pentagon. The 4th aircraft never reached its intended target, the U.S. Capitol, after passengers fought back against the hijackers. It crashed in an open field in Pennsylvania. Staying in the United States, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration on Monday approved updated COVID-19 vaccines ahead of the fall and winter seasons in a bid to prevent a surge of infections. The approval applies to the latest jabs from Moderna as well as Pfizer. The new vaccines target the latest coronavirus variants. People who have never been inoculated against the virus can receive the updated vaccine. The vaccine is expected to receive final approval from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention before being rolled out later this week. And finally, dogs made a splash at Del Mar Dog Beach in California on Sunday by surfing waves at a local surfathon charity event. More than 50 canines surfed up a storm for the 18th Helen Woodward Surf Dog Contest, with some riding the waves solo, while others had a guiding hand from their owners. The annual contest raises funds for orphaned pets. A dog named Sugar took home this year's top prize for Best in Surf. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Calendars may say it is autumn, but it feels nothing like autumn in the afternoon. Summer-like heat continues today across much of Korea, with daytime highs going up 3 to 4 degrees higher than average. South of inland regions will see 5 to 20 millimeters of passing rain, along with thunder and lightning during the day today. But upper parts of the country, including the capital area, are under mostly sunny skies. Afternoon highs in most parts are 30 degrees Celsius this afternoon with strong UV rays. East of Gangwon-do will see rain tomorrow and Thursday, while nationwide showers are in the forecast on Friday, which could linger into Saturday. And that rain might continue into Sunday for southern parts of the country. So frequent rain is in the forecast for southern regions for the next few days. Plan accordingly for the upcoming weekend. But this week's wet weather should bring down the temperatures close to norms next week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And on that note, we end Tuesday's afternoon newscast. We have our panel session on the broader implications of a summit between North Korea and Russia amid the current geopolitical tensions coming up right after this break. So do stay with us. Thank you for now.